Dinner with Ghosts. Seattle's finest restaurant glowed with amber candlelight. White tablecloths. Classical music drifting through the air like expensive perfume. Aladino sat across from Miranda, but he wasn't there. Not really. Every time he blinked, Diane crossing that street. Two babies strapped to her chest. Barrier hats. Quick pause. Comment where you're watching from, and if you're enjoying this story, please like and subscribe. I got a lot more coming. Her lips moving in a lullaby he couldn't hear but could see. Miranda talked about the food, the wine, and the weekend plans. Her voice sounded like noise from another universe. Are you okay? She asked. Third time. Fourth. Fine, he lied. His steak sat untouched. Wine undrunk. Mine somewhere else entirely. Miranda watched him. The way his eyes didn't focus, the way his hands gripped the table edge, the way he was physically present but mentally gone. Aladino, she said softly. You've been somewhere else since the red light. He blinked. I tried to focus on her. Failed. I'm not feeling well, he said finally. Let's go home. The drive home. Silence thick enough to suffocate. Every red light brought her back. Diane. The babies. The math that wouldn't stop adding up. Miranda stared out the window. Neither spoke. He pulled up to her building. For 3 months he'd always kissed her goodnight. Always confirmed tomorrow's plans. Tonight, nothing. Thank you for dinner, he said. Polite. Distant. Like she was a business associate. Miranda studied him. Good night, Aladino. She knew. She knew it was over. Investigation and confirmation 3 a.m. Aladino sat in darkness, phone pressed to his ear. Marcus. I need you to find someone. Marcus Chin answered without hesitation. 15 years serving Aladino meant always being available. Boss. Diane Ray. Everything about her current life. Where she lives. What she does. And the children. His voice shook, something Marcus had never heard before. 3 days later Marcus called back. Boss, I have the information. The report was devastating. 1-bedroom apartment in Capitol Hill, $800 rent she barely made. Part-time cafe work 4 days a week. Income, $1,200 monthly. Twins named Oliver and Emma, 4 months old. Birth certificates showed no father's name. No child support filed. No legal action. Nothing. She never tried to contact you, Marcus said. Not once. Aladino's hands trembled. She could have demanded support. Could have used the babies as leverage. But she chose silence. DNA test, Aladino said. Set it up. Diane agreed immediately when the testing service called. No hesitation. Just, send me the address. The white envelope arrived 3 days later. It sat on Aladino's desk for 3 hours before he tore it open. The conclusion was undeniable. Probability of paternity, 99.9%. Oliver Ray and Emma Ray were his children. For the first time in 20 years, since standing beside his mentor's grave, Aladino cried. Not sobbing. Just tears sliding down his face while he held a DNA report, confronting what he'd done. He'd abandoned his children. First contact Capitol Hill. A small cafe on a street corner. Aladino sat in the darkest booth watching her. Diane moved behind the counter in a worn brown apron, auburn hair tied neatly, making lattes with practiced hands. She looked thinner, dark circles under her eyes, but still smiling at every customer. Then her gaze swept across the cafe. Froze. The cloth fell from her hand. She retrieved it slowly, said something to her coworker, then walked toward him. Step steady. She sat down as if this were ordinary. Aladino, she said. Voice perfectly level. Why didn't you tell me? He asked. Tell you what? Diane tilted her head. That I was pregnant with the weakness you couldn't accept? His own words. Thrown back with ruthless precision. Family is a weakness. He'd said it. He believed it. I had a right to know I have children, Aladino said, fighting to keep his voice steady. You had the right to choose, Diane said slowly. You chose. I respected that. Now respect my choice. I don't owe you anything. You made it clear what you wanted. And it didn't include family. I won't force someone to be a father who doesn't want to be. I lived my whole life as a burden. My children will never taste that feeling. I want a DNA test, Aladino said. Diane nodded without hesitation. Fine. Send me the address. I'll bring the babies in. She stood, smoothed her apron and walked away. Back to work. As if the conversation never happened. No demands. Not a single bitter word. Not a tear. That hurt more than any accusation. Learning to be a father, Aladino stood outside apartment 36. The building was aging, stairs creaking. He knocked. Diane opened the door, stepping aside in silent invitation. The apartment was smaller than his walk-in closet but cleaned meticulously. Baby toys in a wicker basket, tiny clothes folded precisely, paper butterflies on pale yellow walls. Nothing expensive. Everything radiates love. They're sleeping, Diane said quietly. But they'll wake soon. Aladino moved to the crib. Saw them for the first time up close. Oliver on the left, solemn even in sleep. Eyes opened, gray eyes exactly like his. Watchful, weighing whether this stranger could be trusted. Emma on the right, eyes lighting up like stars, stretching tiny arms toward him, grinning wide. Aladino wanted to hold her but couldn't. Hands that signed million-dollar contracts hung stiff at his sides. Afraid he'd hurt her. I'll transfer money, he said. Set up accounts. Best schools. Medical insurance. Anything they need. Diane leaned against the doorway. I don't need your money. I've managed fine without it. 3 days later, his first scheduled visit. When Oliver started crying, Aladino attempted his first diaper change. The moment he opened it, Oliver launched a perfect fountain attack. Wet stains spread across his $5,000 Armani suit. From the kitchen, Diane's barely suppressed laughter. Feeding Emma turned into warfare. She took the spoonful in, then blasted sweet potato puree right back out. His crisp white shirt now stained orange. Emma giggled like it was the funniest game. Bedtime was a disaster. His deep bass voice meant to give orders terrified Oliver into crying. Oliver's crying woke Emma. 2 babies screaming in unison. A neighbor knocked to complain. But the next day, Aladino came back. And the day after. Late at night, he watched YouTube videos, how to change a diaper for beginners. He secretly enrolled in a parenting class in the suburbs, wearing a baseball cap pulled low. 3 weeks passed. He was still slow, still messy. But Emma settled in his arms now, eyes drifting shut as he hummed. And Diane watched from the doorway, surprised he hadn't quit. Breakthrough ordinary Saturday evening. Aladino sat on the floor feeding babies dinner. Emma eagerly opened her mouth. Oliver accepted food but kept invisible distance. In 3 weeks the boy never reached for him. Never smiled. Those gray eyes are always watching with caution. Aladino brought the last spoonful to Oliver's mouth. Good job. All done. Oliver looked at him. Then, with no warning, reached for him. Time stopped. The spoon clattered. Aladino glanced at Diane for permission. She gave a small nod, eyes wide with surprise. He carefully lifted Oliver into his lap. First time. The first time the baby allowed him this close. Oliver sat there, tilting his head, studying him. Then raised his hand. Touched Aladino's cheek. Da-da. Aladino couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. 4-month-old son in his lap. World shifting on its axis. Dada, Oliver said again. Clear. More important than any $1 million contract. More important than any oath of loyalty. More important than anything he'd ever achieved. His eyes burned. For the first time in 20 years, Aladino felt tears. He didn't cry when enemies betrayed him. But now, with his son calling him father, he couldn't stop it. Emma, unwilling to let her brother steal attention, slapped her high chair tray. Dada, she cried higher, more excited. Aladino smiled. A trembling smile warped by tears. But the first real smile he'd had in years. In the doorway, Diane stood with one hand covering her mouth, tears streaming, watching the man who left her holding their son, crying while their daughter shouted for her father. That night, she called her best friend Sarah. He's doing well. Better than I imagined. Then that's good, right? Silence. When Diane spoke, her voice was small. That's the problem. I'm scared he'll be this good. And then one day he'll disappear again. The babies have started to love him. If he leaves now, they won't understand. But if he stays for months, years, and then leaves, they'll remember. They'll hurt. And I can't protect them from that pain. The threat emerges. Aladino's empire began showing cracks. Monday, important meeting pushed back for twin bedtimes. Tuesday, critical call declined for feeding babies. Wednesday, major decision delayed for diaper changes. His most trusted men whispered in shadowed corners. The twins' 5-month birthday. Aladino sat in a conference room with 6 powerful men discussing a deal worth tens of millions. His phone vibrated. Photo from Diane, Oliver and Emma in tiny birthday hats, surrounded by balloons she'd blown up herself. Aladino stood, buttoned his jacket. Meeting's over. One veteran protested, this deal couldn't wait. Aladino's steel-gray eyes cut to him. It will wait. He walked out. Marcus drove him to Capitol Hill. For the first time in 15 years, Marcus saw his boss truly smile. Not the cold smile for enemies or the polished one for society. A real smile that softened his eyes. 3 days later, Marcus stepped into Aladino's office, face sharp with concern. The Romano family. They're gathering information. About a woman and 2 children. The apartment in Capitol Hill. Exact address. Movement schedule. Everything. Blood in Aladino's veins went cold. Fear he'd buried for years surged up. Boss, Marcus continued. People are talking. They know you've got something to protect now. Family is a weakness. He'd said it. Believed it. And now the fear was becoming real. Increase security, Aladino ordered. 24/7. Don't let them find out. But Diane noticed. Black cars. Men watching. The feeling of eyes. She called him, voice shaking. Someone's following me. I'm scared. Aladino arrived within 15 minutes. He told her everything. The underworld. The enemies. The Romano family. The threat closing in. That's the real reason I pushed you away, he said. I told myself leaving you was protecting you. Diane looked at him, voice bitter. But instead you left me unprotected and alone. Pregnant with twins. Aladino lowered his head. No defense. She was right. You and the babies have to move to my penthouse, he said. State-of-the-art security. Guards 24/7. No one can touch you there. Diane looked at the sleeping babies. Pride wanted to argue. But she didn't have the right to let pride endanger them. Fine. But this isn't the end of this conversation. I know. Aladino took her hand. First time since their breakup. I failed you once. I won't fail again. I'll burn my entire empire before I let anyone lay a hand on our family. The attack pediatrician appointment. Routine checkup. Oliver and Emma are healthy, developing on schedule. Diane exhaled relief, carrying babies back to the car with 2 elite guards close. But on the drive home, the familiar route felt wrong. Too empty. No traffic. Shops were closed and dark. As if the entire neighborhood had evacuated. Cold dread ran up Diane's spine, then everything happened at once. Black car burst from an alley ahead, blocking the road. Another sealed them in from behind. Trap. Gunshots cracked like thunder. Diane clutched Oliver and Emma to her chest. Folding over them, the windshield shattered. Bullets hammered metal. Oliver screamed. Emma went terrifyingly silent, green eyes wide with fear. "It's okay. Mommy's here. Mommy will protect you," Diane whispered, even though she knew it was a lie. Gunfire stopped. 2 guards lay motionless. 4 men in black masks walked toward her car. No one coming to save them. Car door yanked open. Rough hand grabbed her hair, wrenched hard. Diane screamed but didn't let go of the babies. Broken glass sliced her shoulder. Blood soaked through her shirt. She didn't care. Only held them tighter. Then a different gunshot. The man gripping her hair dropped. Then second. Third. Marcus appeared with his team, firing with millimeter precision. The backup Aladino secretly positioned. The fight was short, brutal, merciless. Diane lay over the babies, ears ringing, praying. Then silence. Marcus appeared at the door, face speckled with blood. "Are you okay?" "The babies?" Around her, 3 attackers sprawled on the road. Vehicles torn by bullets. Blood everywhere. "The babies." Diane rasped. Oliver hiccuping in her arms. Emma silent but safe. "No wounds." "They're fine," Marcus nodded. "But you're bleeding." She looked down. Didn't even feel the pain. Only overwhelming relief. The babies were safe. Marcus called Aladino. "They're safe. But she's hurt." Long silence. Then Aladino's voice, cold as ice. "Find who's behind it. Then bring them to me." The monster and the man Aladino tore through hospital doors like a storm. Nurses hurried aside when they saw the tall man with burning gray eyes moving toward them. He took stairs 3 at a time, breathing hard. Not from exertion. From fear. Room 37. He shoved the door open. World stopped. Diane lay on the hospital bed, auburn hair spilled across white pillow, face frighteningly pale. Left shoulder bandaged, blood-staining gauze. Eyes shut in exhausted sleep. Beside her, Oliver and Emma curled up like kittens, faces carrying faint tracks of dried tears. Aladino's knees buckled. He dropped to the floor. With shaking hands he reached to touch Oliver's face. Fingertips brushing soft skin, proof his son was alive. Then Emma. Then Diane's hand. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice thick. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry." Diane opened her eyes. Tired green gaze meeting his. "The babies are okay. That's all that matters. But you, just a cut. Babies are safe. That's the only thing I care about." Something inside Aladino shifted. He stood, releasing Diane's hand. Turned to Marcus in the corner. When he spoke, it wasn't the voice of a father fumbling through diaper changes. This was Aladino Greco, king of Seattle's underworld. Cold, merciless, glacial. "Romano wants to send a message. Send them one back. Make sure it's the last message anyone ever needs to hear about touching what belongs to me." Marcus nodded. "How far, boss?" Aladino looked at Emma's shirt where Diane's blood had dried into dark spots. When he lifted his gaze, no emotion remained. Empty as an abyss. No limits. No survivors. No mercy. Marcus left. Diane heard everything. For the first time she truly saw the monster. Not the awkward man learning to be a father. But Aladino Greco, who could order destruction without blinking. 3 days later Marcus returned. Romano family no longer a problem. No one asked for details. In the underworld, the name Romano became a warning whispered in dark corners. 1 week later, Diane and babies recovered. Shoulder wound healing, leaving a faint pink scar. Oliver and Emma laughing again as if nothing happened. Children could heal. But Diane didn't forget. One night, she stood watching Aladino in the rocking chair, both babies asleep in his arms. Moonlight traced gentle lines across his face as he kissed Oliver's forehead, then Emma's. "This is your world," Diane whispered. "Violence. Death." Aladino didn't turn. "Yes. But the 3 of you are the reason I'll leave it." Choosing the family 1 week after the attack. Diane stood in Aladino's penthouse where security was tightest. Shoulder wound healed to a faint pink scar. But the wound inside still bled. One night after the babies slept, Diane found Aladino alone by the window, glass of whiskey in hand but not drinking. She sat across from him. Time to talk. I saw who you really are, Diane began, voice gentle but weighted. The way you gave that order without blinking. Coldness like destroying an entire family was just another item on your to-do list. Aladino kept his gaze on the window. That's who I had to become to survive. The world I grew up in doesn't make room for weakness or mercy. But is that who my children will grow up watching? Diane asked. I grew up in violence. I know what it does to a child. I won't raise my children in it. I would never hurt them, but you'll hurt other people. One day the babies will be old enough to understand. To see blood on your hands. I can't let that happen. Silence filled the room. Diane waited for him to argue. Instead, what he said next froze her. Then I'll leave it. All of it. Diane blinked. What? I'll move everything into legal business. It'll take time. Maybe a year. But I'll get out completely. You'll give up your empire? Everything you built? Aladino turned to her. An empire means nothing if I lose the only people who make me human. I spent my whole life building power, becoming untouchable. Then I met you. Then I had Oliver and Emma. And I realized all that power is worthless if I can't sit down and read my children a story without worrying that an enemy is waiting outside. He held her gaze. I choose you. I choose the babies. I choose rocking chairs at 3 a.m. and diapers that need changing. I choose Emma's laughter and Oliver's watchful eyes. I choose all of that over my empire. Outside the door, Marcus stood listening. 15 years watching his boss. 15 years watching this man build an empire of iron and blood. Now hearing him say he'd give it all up. For a woman. For 2 children. For my family. Marcus remembered Oliver's crayon drawing Aladino kept in his wallet. 4 stick figures holding hands. For the first time in 15 years, Marcus understood real strength. Diane searched Aladino's eyes for lies. Found only sincerity. Resolve. And I hope she hasn't seen me in over a year. For the first time since their breakup, she allowed herself to hope. 1 month passed. Aladino kept his promise. Day by day he handed operations to Marcus. Secret meetings grew less frequent. Midnight calls disappeared. Marcus carried the empire while Aladino became someone different. He woke at 5 a.m. to prepare bottles. I worked from home keeping the door open to hear the babies. I learned to cook, burning 3 pans in the process. But he didn't quit. Diane watched it all. Little by little her wall cracked. She allowed him to stay overnight. First just the sofa, but it was a step forward. One night near month's end, Aladino found Diane reading on the sofa. Come with me. Just 15 minutes. She followed him to the penthouse rooftop. The place where he'd proposed 2 years earlier. Her heart stopped when she saw him drop to one knee. But he didn't pull out a ring. Instead, a wrinkled sheet of paper. Oliver's crayon drawing from daycare. 4 stick figures holding hands. Mama. Emma. Ollie. Daddy. First time I proposed, Aladino said, voice shaking. I gave you everything I had. Penthouse. Black card. Safety. But I couldn't give you what you actually wanted. I was so certain family was weakness. I was wrong. Loving you, loving the babies isn't weakness. It's the only thing that's ever made me strong. I don't deserve a second chance. But I'm not asking for myself. I'm asking for the babies. For Oliver, who finally stopped shrinking away. For Emma, who says, Dad, before anything else when she wakes up. He lifted the drawing. I'm asking because 4 stick figures holding hands are worth more than every empire I ever built. Tears slid down Diane's cheeks. What about danger? Your enemies? I want to be a man my children can be proud of when they're old enough to understand. The man you always believed I could become. Diane looked at him kneeling under Seattle's night sky. Not with a diamond ring. But with their son's drawing. This wasn't the Aladino from 2 years ago. This was a man who'd been broken and rebuilt himself. She bent down, took his hand, pulled him to his feet. Her hands cupped his face. "Yes," she said, voice cracked with tears and a smile. "But this time we do it together. No more secrets. No more running. And if you ever leave again, I swear on the baby's lives, I won't." They stood forehead to forehead, breath mingling, city glittering beneath them. Two people who once thought they wanted different things, now realizing they wanted the same thing. Each other. The red light returns 2 years later. Aladino sat at another red light. But everything was different. In the back seat, Oliver and Emma, now almost 3 years old, singing an off-key song from daycare. Beside him, Diane, hand resting on his arm, smiling at the chaos. He no longer drove a luxury car meant to intimidate. He drove a safe SUV with car seats and scattered Cheerios. When the light turned green, he didn't immediately accelerate. He paused, looked both ways, took his time. Because he'd learned, some things matter more than getting somewhere fast. He'd learned, a red light isn't just an inconvenience. Sometimes it's a moment of grace. A chance to see what you almost missed. A chance to change everything. As they drove toward home, a suburban house with a green yard and children's laughter echoing from every room, Diane squeezed his hand. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "I'm thinking about a red light. 2 years ago." "What about it?" Aladino glanced in the rearview mirror at his children, then at his wife. "I'm thinking that it's the best thing that ever happened to me."
Like and subscribe if you enjoy watching this story. See you on the next one.